Lee Tree Anna Brown have something you've been waiting for. You asked for it. Now, you got it. Haunted objects. Possessions that won't die. The chilling new book that dares to uncover the cursed, the creepy, and the downright dangerous artifacts that refuse to rest. From possessed dolls to deadly heirlooms, this book dives deep into the real stories behind haunted items that have terrorized families, baffled investigators, and defied all logic. And guess what? Featuring a foreword by none other than John Zaffis, the paranormal godfather, the haunted collector. This isn't just a book. It's your personal portal into the world of the unseen, and the unforgettable. Available now on Amazon. Haunted Objects. Possessions That Won't Die. By Matthew and Letriana Brown. Some spirits attach to people. But these? They attach to things. Order your copy before it finds you first.
Special announcement. Matthew and Lee Tree Anna have something you have been waiting for. You asked for it and now
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Ellis, and tonight I am filling in for Ms. Gwen Johns. And I'm also here to introduce the host of tonight's show, Bridging the Seen and Unseen, Mr. Shane McLain.
Hey. Welcome, everybody, to Bridging the Unseen. I am your host. I am Shane McLain. It's good to be here. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing fine. We had a great show last night, buddy.
Oh man, that was a great show. I mean, I had people reaching out even after, and they were like, "Man, that show was very informative," and I think it was. I think it went really well.
Yeah, we had a really good turnout, and a lot of people were asking questions last night. And like I said, I do appreciate everyone that stopped in last night to see the show.
Absolutely. Tonight, we just got. Well, I've got an awesome guest. I look forward to having him on. He's a very interesting person, and he's got a very interesting story with a very interesting location, and he is the owner of the infamous Enfield haunting. His name is Jay Yaple. So let's bring Mr. Jay on.
All righty, I'll bring him on for you, and you guys have a great show. I'm going to drop
All right,
back.
appreciate you, man.
You holler if you need anything.
All right.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's going on, Jay?
Not much. It's good to see you.
Glad to have you on, too. We always start the show off pretty simple. Just tell everybody who you are and a little about yourself, and how you got into the paranormal and the experience you have even with the location that you have. So you just take the floor right now.
Okay. Well, my name is Jay Yaple, and one of the things that everybody in the paranormal, nobody really knows me. I'm like a mystery person, right? Because because like when people come in, I talk about the house, and so when people are always trying to figure me out, they're like, who, because I never reveal anything about my past or anything like that, because But so how I got into paranormal? Well, ever since I was a little kid, I always had this closeness to, I don't know, what you want to call God and things like that. And I always had this weird sixth sense, like say, if I'm going to walk in a room and I get this weird feeling and something says, get out, I back out because I know not to go in there. And likely that carried Shane over into the military. And that saved my life. That literally saved my life. I should not be alive today.
That little gut feeling, you were telling me about the ship and everything, man. That's an amazing story.
Yeah. I almost got wiped out, and there was a few times I almost got shot, and one time, when we went to like apprehend a guy, all of a sudden, because one of the things I also did was I was in the military police. And we did special like investigations, things like that. And I don't talk about it because there's a lot of things I can't get into still.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a guy, and he was just kind of like this, and I couldn't tell if he was really drunk or he was pretending to be drunk. So we approached him, and that little voice said, "Watch his hand." And
said what? What did he say?
It said, "Watch his hand."
Oh.
So as I looked down, as he was going like this, he put his hand down and he was going for his pistol.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah. So my partner just, took him down, but yeah, so that little voice and things like that always kept me going, and, but I think I got it from my ancestors. My grandmother was from Europe. She was Austrian Hungarian, and they came over a long time ago. And they were involved in a lot of things. But one of the things I remember was there was a TV show on, and the guy says, "We're going to welcome the amazing Kreskin," right? And so the guy goes over and he gets a special spoon. And he's like this, going like mind control, and it bends, right? Well, now I realize something's not right in my family. My grandmother starts to laugh. She goes over to the drawer, gets a tablespoon, and she goes, "You know what? That's magic." She goes, "Well, watch this." She grabs a spoon, and the spoon is folded right in half.
What?
Yeah. As soon as that happened, my mother was in the bathroom because whenever she had to conduct business, she would take a long cord, go in the bathroom, and that's how they talked, right? So my mother walked out and saw that, and now I learned another thing. I never knew my mother could speak a foreign language, and they went back and forth. And then finally, my mother told my grandmother, she said, "I told you never to show my kids," and my grandmother just started laughing. So later on in years, I was telling that story to some of my family, and they said, "You don't know about Grammy, do you?" I said, "No." And they said when Grammy was younger, she was pushing a baby carriage. And back then, it was bars in every corner. And she was pushing the baby carriage. And a guy came out drunk. And he stumbled and he spit. But he didn't mean to spit on the baby carriage. But he looked at my grandmother. And they said he knew that something was, that there was fear in his eyes. Well, she went down. She muttered something, picked up a stick, and went like this. The next day, the guy ended up breaking both his legs.
Oh, wow. What?
So these are the stories that you try to go in, because the old timers, they always kept the code of silence. They never talked. So when I grew up, it was a normal childhood. All I knew was that both my grandparents worked at Columbia Bicycle Manufacturing. Then I found out some of them were in bootleg, and then all of a sudden I find out that my grandfather was stabbed in his chest by his own father. That's because that's the way it was back then, I guess. I don't know. Times were different, So it was interesting to find all this stuff out. So as I grew up, I always had that sixth sense. Like I knew, like say when my grandfather died, I woke up and I heard my mother coming up the stairs, and she said, "Hey guys, I got bad news." I said, "Grandpa died, didn't he?"
Oh, yeah. My family's got that same thing.
Yeah. So that's the type of stuff that happened. So through the life, everything was like that. And I told you that one time when I was overseas, and it was crazy. I mean, and that changed me. And that I don't talk about this, Shem, but I want to talk about you. Um, being in a different types of military, switching branches, things like that. And the main reason I went and I crossed over the Navy was so that when I got out, I could tell people, hey, what did you do? Oh, I was in the Navy. I was aboard an aircraft carrier. Oh, that's cool. End of discussion. When I was in the Army and they said, well, what did you do? I'm like, then I would say, well, you know what? I was a janitor. Or I would say, I'm a cook or something like that. And, and it was hard. So when my buddy said to me, you want to join the Navy, I was almost I was like 30, So I went to my retention NCO and I said, hey, and he looked at me like, you know what, how about going for a psych eval? Because, you're switching total branches. And I had a reason, because I want, it's all about cover-ups and things. So I crossed over and my buddy backed out, but I'm like, oh, what the heck? I'm going to go for the ride. So the Navy's the only branch that makes you go back through basic training. So
The Navy does. The Navy does, even at that age. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was competing against 18-year-old kids, and I got some crazy stories. And I ended up I got into a fight with a guy. I thought he was a frogman, but turned out to be a Navy SEAL. And I was brought up, and that's a whole story. And brought up, and I got in front of a Navy commander, and when he turned around, I saw the trident on his chest, and he was a head instructor of a SEAL school.
Oh man, no, I wouldn't mess with that guy.
Yeah, so I thought, well, this is it. My Navy career ended because I'll tell you quickly what's going on before we get into funeral. We were in the water doing water survival training, right? And we're supposed to float. So I'm trying to float. Well, they were like kind of doing almost like a shark attack where they would dive in the water and they were just supposed to like grab your feet and things like that. Well, there's one individual, he grabbed me and he pulled me down. And he kept doing it. So I said, stop it, right? I said, I don't like it because, that's not my forte. I'm not a frogman, right? And I'm a little bit scared of the water. So he did it again. He pulled me down and I saw his arm coming around my throat.
Trying to go behind your neck. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was going to pull me down. Well, I freaked out. So I took my elbow, I tried to wham him. And it's hard to wham somebody in the water. So
Yeah.
I grabbed him by the head. It was full contact. So when he came up, I ended up grabbing him by the throat. And I says, I says, you might be king shit. I said, in the water. I said, but I was prior service. I says, when we get out on land, I says, you're mine. Well, he got upset and he went and told his commander. And that was a really cool, interesting response from the Navy commander. I'll tell you really fast. So what happened was I'm still in the water. I see him go up and he whispers to the guy and his back is facing the thing and he's writing things down and he whispers and the guy turns his head. And the next thing I know, one of the RDCs, which is like Navy almost drill instructor, and he says, "Hey, Yaple, get out of the water." So when I walked up, I had my stomach sunk. I said, "Well, this ends my Navy career right now because I just had a senior guy." So I go up there and I'm walking slowly and I'm trying to think, man. I said, this sucks. So I go up there and the guy turned around and I saw this little stocky guy there had a trident. He was in his 40s, and he says, "Are you the hot shot that threatened to kill my guy?" And I was honest. I said, "Sir," I says, "in the water," I said, "he kept pulling me down, and then he tried choking me out." I said, so I told him, I said, basically, when he gets out of the water, he does that. I said, "I'm going to effing kill you." He goes, "That's honest." And he goes, "What makes you think that you can take my guy out?" I said, "Well, I was prior service." I whispered in his ear what I did, opened his eyes. He goes, "You're honest." He goes, "You're cocky." He says, "Yaple," he goes, "Do you ever want to become a SEAL?" And I said, "No, sir." And he said, "No, sir. Like, are you trying to insult me that that you don't want to be a SEAL, or you just don't want to really be a SEAL? I said, no, sir. I said, I joined the Navy. I said, they got out of combat arms. And he's like, well, and he talked. So we talked back and forth, to make a long story short. It went on for a while. He says, wait right here. He went over and he got a pen and paper, and he wrote down his name. He wrote down his office number, his home phone number, and his pager number. And he says, he goes, I know you're not finished yet with basic, but he goes, what you did before, he goes, this is nothing. So I'm going to call you shipmate. He goes, so shipmate, he goes, when you get out to the fleet, he goes, anytime you need anything at all, he goes, here's my information. You call me. He goes, now I got chilled. He goes, I'm the head of the SEAL Training Commander Center down over up by Oceana. So he says, you need anything. He goes, you impress the shit out of me, right? And I was scared. I was literally shaking. I was so scared because I thought my whole career was going to end. So now what happens is the RDC gets the other officers, because they thought all heck was going to break out. So they come running over and they said, is there a problem with Airman Yaple? Because I went towards like Navy aviation, right? So they said, no. They said, you see this guy? They said, you make sure you take good care of him. And they said, he's going to get out in the fleet and he's going to be one hell of a sailor. And they said, you know what? And they said, no problem. He said, there was a small little thing. Airman Yaple was honest, and that's what we want. He goes, that's our motto, you know, honor, courage, and commitment, and type of things.
Yeah.
So that was it. So as we walk around, and my RDC said, holy shit. He goes, people died. He goes, literally killed to get a SEAL building. And he goes, this guy just offered you to go into SEAL school and to head over to Buds. And he goes, and you flat right looked in his face and said, no. And I said, you know what? I said, Chief, I said, I'm so freaking scared right now. I said, I'm shaking. He goes, yeah. So after that was a weird story.
It's
so
not easy going to a school like SEAL school either. I think it's like, I think out of 10 people, 9 people tap out.
Yeah, it's not easy. And I don't like the water. I like to go swimming and paddling, but to do water survival training,
they use that against you too, man. If they find out too that like you don't like the water and stuff like that, you'll spend the majority of your time in the water.
Yeah. And then they have serious like search and rescue, where, you know what, like the Army has a program like that, and you basically go in the woods and you do land nav and everything like that. But then the course flips, and then you go into like a prisoner of war camp. And then they psychologically they start to mind after you, because they put you in cages. You know, they can do all kinds of stuff to you to show you what's going to happen when you get deployed or you get sent somewhere. If you get captured, are you going to be able to handle it psychologically? I mean, physically is one thing, but psychologically, people don't understand the stuff that they can do to you out there.
Oh, I know. He was I had a friend of mine that was telling me, because he used to do the interrogations and stuff like that, and he says it was not uncommon to take like like when they did Iraq and stuff like that, when they went to that undisclosed location, that they would take and they would put the screaming sound in a speaker right at somebody and do it for like 72 hours or something like that, and just try to really just break the mentality of the person down. And I can only imagine, man, because like I've tried that before, like just tried to stay up for 72 hours to see what it really does to you. And it does start messing with you, man, because like your paranoid level gets up and everything. You start thinking you going crazy, like you're having panic attacks. It's wild.
It is, because like people don't realize sleep deprivation, and the military and the government is so far advanced. So it's one thing doing a 24-hour shift at a hospital, doing something like that. But when you're up, like you said, all day and night, and then they start playing like psych games, you know what? They can make you hallucinate. They
Oh, I
can
know.
make you anything, and you can get squirrely. And that's what
Especially
they want.
after that time. If they do it after the time, like say you spend 72 hours up and you've got a speaker blaring on you, and then they bring you out right there, and then they sit you down and they're sitting across from you with the light dead in your face, and then they start questioning and like I don't even think that I would comprehend things right way, you know.
No, because your mind's so like what we did, it was kind of off record, but the guy, we sat awake and drink coffee, and in the beginning it was fun. We were playing cards, and it was kind of cool, and then the day got long and long. So then they brought out the firearms and they put an M16 down and they said break it down. They said put it back together again. So you pull back the charging handle, boom, 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 put it back together. You're like, oh, that's simple, right? Everything's simple. And then they bring out the Beretta 9mm, do the same thing, boom, 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 right? So then they go back, to things. Now you're not eating, right? You can drink water, right? You got a canteen of water, and you're thinking, oh, this is a piece of cake. Well, you know what? When you don't sleep, you go past that 24 hours, they break out the weapons again, and now
You start forgetting stuff. Yeah.
And it's like things are like this, and you gotta stay focused. And then towards the end, it gets really messed up because they're playing games with you. They're saying certain key words, and they'll be like cat, dog, and they'll want you to repeat things, and they say aircraft, and they'll say different things. And then when you start getting tired, and they know how to do it, and then you almost see a cat, right? And then they say, put the weapon together. Here's a stopwatch, and then you're like. I remember trying to put together, and they just want to see, the main reason they want to see how you're going to respond if you get out and something happens and you don't have sleep, because you're not going to sleep in a real area, right? And they want to see what's going to happen. So they can do things because it's crazy. I had a friend of mine, and he went to the crossover and into the special forces, and he was doing really good. He was, and but you know what happened? Like when they put him into SAR school, right? Search and rescue. The guy literally, what you're saying with the water and the cages, he flipped out and he had a nervous breakdown. And
never
the same afterwards. They gave him a medical discharge, and he was messed up for the rest of his life, and it's scary because that could happen to anybody. So
oh man, I know. When I was in school, I brought a POW from the Vietnam War. He was a good friend of my family's. His name was Greg, and he actually still has the rope indentions in his wrist to where the Vietcong had him hung up by the bamboo shoots in a hole. And stuff like that, and he was stuck there, and the stories he would tell, they strip you completely down, they strip you, and they put your hands, they tie your wrist up, and they put your hands above the bamboo shoots, and then they'll come through with an electrical charge. They come through an electrical charge and they hook it up to your fingers. And he said that they would zap you right there, and your feet are dangling like this with your toes on, in mud and dirt like that. You pee yourself, you poop yourself, you do whatever. He got back or whatever, and like he said, one time a day they would come around with a bucket filled with rice and water, and they would come through because the bamboo shoot was in the ground. And they would come through with a bucket with rice and water, and they'd dump it, and he'd have to open his mouth, and that's all the water and the rice that he got. And when he got back or whatever, he was so paranoid of the government. I'll never forget it either, because like when we found his house and stuff like that, he had took the flooring. He had took the flooring out of his closet, and he built a tunnel underneath that went underneath his house all the way down through his backyard, that went under a big fence that was on the other side, just in case the government were to ever turn on him or whatever, that he'd have an escape way out, because he didn't trust. He used to wear a shirt that says Vietnam, the war that God forgot about.
Yep. Yeah.
Hey Shane, you've got
What's
some
up?
guests here. You got
Go
some
ahead.
guests.
Let's bring them up. Hey, thank you guys for all commenting, man. It's glad to have you guys here. Please read some comments real quick.
You got Thomas Patrick Gormley in the house that says hello.
What's up, Thomas?
You've got Wardrew Stacy Wells in the house.
Hey, Stacy.
Let's see. I'm trying to find some of the major ones here. Bob Rose. They were talking about Jay needs to tell the Bob Ross story. Let's see. Yeah, Bob Ross, the best storyteller. That is the story Jay needs to tell. It says that's from Stacy Willis. Let's see. Thomas said he had an amazing experience there. Let's see what else.
That's awesome. We're going to get into that too. We're going to get into that, the whole house, in just a few minutes too. Jay and I get off and we start talking about, stuff, but thank you guys for all coming on too. And thank you. Keep the comments coming. I can't see them, but Sean can see them. So he'll come on and let me know whatever they say. Jay, let me ask you. So your house that you got in 2006, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So what did you have any information about that house before you moved in there?
No. What happened is, God, Shane, maybe me and you get out there and get so honest.
Oh, I know. It's easy to do.
Yeah. See, because a lot of times I never talk about myself. I'm very private and stuff, And so what happened was, how I got the house, I was running for another company, a high-rise building down in Springfield, Mass. It was an 18-story building, and I had a crew working for me and everything. So I would go down to what they would call the property manager. And, and the funny thing, I'll tell you a quick story about that. When I got hired, right, I didn't know if I was going to be over my head or not, because it was to a company called NEMC, right? And so as I went through 4 interviews, right? I went through the service manager, the general manager, the hire manager, and then the vice president. So as we get to the building to show me around, right, in the beginning, he says, you got to watch out for the manager. He goes, that her nickname is the Ice Princess. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, don't say that to her. He goes, I'm like, why would you call her? He goes, she's like Barbie with teeth. And I'm like, what am I getting into? So they bring me up to her office. This was like my first day. And they said, if you pass her test, you got the job. So what I didn't realize is she went through 5 guys. She just called up and said, get rid of this guy, right? So I go in there and I see this girl, really pretty, small petite girl. And so they said, yeah, this is Jay. We want you to like introduce him and things like that. So, and again, like I said, I'm used to like intimidation tactics. I'm used to mind games, right? So, I'm used to messing with the guys in the khakis, right? So she turns around and brings me to the boardroom. And now there's a table like 12 feet long, right? And she sits down and she has a pencil and she just stares at me like this. Like this. And I'm like, what the hell do I say, right? I'm like, Merry Christmas or something like that. So I said, you know what? I said, my name's Jay. She goes, my name's Michelle. And she sat there. And I'm thinking we're going to have like an interview. Like, you're going to ask me questions. I'm going to answer. You're going to ask me about my background. So now I look at the guys who were supposed to hire me. They're all hiding over there because they don't want to deal with her, right? And I didn't realize that. So all of a sudden, I said, you know what? To break the ice, I said, what is the worst thing that has happened in your building? I mean, I said, did a chiller explode? I said, did someone get hurt? Anybody get electrocuted? And she sat back and she smiled. She goes, you know what? She goes, that is a very good question. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? I think you're going to work out. So just like that, and I was scared because, and then she waved to all the bosses, and they came in. They said, "That was fast." They said, "You want us to get another manager?" She goes, "No." She goes, "I think I like Jay," and she goes, "Let's see how he works out." Well, we ended up being good friends. You know, I used to go down there sometimes, and we would talk for hours, just personal stuff. And I'll tell you a story about her. I changed her life, and I didn't even realize that. And I'll tell you a story after. But so what happened was one day we were talking, and we were trying to get pregnant. Not me, but my wife. You know, and so I said, "Hey, Shell," I said, "You know what? I don't think I'm ever going to get a house." I said, "Houses that were 50,000 are going for 150." I said, "The prices are going sky high. It's insane." So she smiled. She goes, "You know what? My husband, John, owns a lot of properties up in Connecticut." And she goes, "There's one in Enfield." And she goes, "You can just jump right on 91 and come right to work and go home." And she goes, it's like located. So I'm like, okay. So she goes, "Jay, you don't have to buy it." And she was kind of there. She goes, "It's run down." She goes, it was like neglected. But she goes, "You got a lot of friends." She goes, "You can get it fixed up and make it livable." But she goes, "Just check it out." So I met her husband there, and the guy's a great guy, you know. But you know, he was a salesman, and he can sell. So Elka went there, and she looked at me like, "What in the hell are you getting me into?" Right? So we looked around, and I said, "John," I said, this is a crap hole." And he says, "You know what? Look around, guys." He goes, "It's a duplex." And he goes, "I'll take care of you." He goes, "Michelle told me to make sure I take care of you." So he said, "I got to get going." He goes, "Look around the house." He goes, "Come back tomorrow." So I said, "Okay." So she's looking around. So what we did is we drove back at night, and I did surveillance, right? I sat in the car, and I'm watching the neighborhood, right? I'm just watching the people walking up and down, and I'm checking people out. And I said, "Okay," I said, "This looks like an okay town." I said, "Yeah." I said, "It looks like a working man's town, like a mill town used to be." I said, "Yeah."
Right.
I said, "It's like an international neighborhood, but I don't see anything that's gonna, do any damage." So we went back. So John's like, "All right." He goes, "Okay, kids." He goes, "What do you guys think?" And Uncle's like, "No way." She goes, "John," she goes, "First of all, what the house is going for now," she goes, "plus Jay's working like 60 hours a week. The babies are coming." And she goes, "The price," she goes, "the money we'd have to soak into this." She goes, "It's going to be astronomical." And he smiled, just like the devil, right? Smile, right? And he says, "You know what?" He goes, "Kids, I got it listed for, I don't like to say 225, right?" And he knew what he was doing. He goes, "But Michelle told me to make sure I take care." He goes, "I'm going to give it to you for 165. And I'm like, "Wow." And so Elka's like, "Yeah, I don't care." She goes, "It's still awful." So he comes back and he says, "You know what?" He sweetens the deal. He goes, "Listen, kids." He goes, "I got a brand new roof on." He goes, "Last year I replaced all the boilers." He goes, "You got baseboard hot water." Jay, he goes, "You can add on more zone valves or whatever." And he goes, "I put all a brand new electrical service in there. He goes, all grounded, everything. You don't have to worry about any faulty wiring." So now I'm thinking, being a guy, it's like a poker game, right? I'm like, okay, what else? And then he says, "I also put all brand new vinyl windows in." He goes, "Jay, all you got to do is sheetrock. You want to rip out a wall, do some plumbing." He goes, "You pick up a phone." He goes, and then you get your buddies. So now, being a guy, we're like, okay, let's do this, right? And Alka was skeptic. And so she said, "Let me think about it." And John's like, "Okay, kids." He goes, "Here's the keys. Come back. Whatever you got to do." He goes, "Let me know." So we went back the third time, and the warning signs were there, Shane. And I wasn't thinking about ghosts. I didn't really believe in ghosts. A lot of times I think, okay, we only use like 25% of our brain. What's the other 75% for? You look at the Buddhist monks. They can almost levitate. They can, mind control's pretty crazy. So we looked at the house a third time, and then back then we were young and stupid. And she said, she kind of had that look like this, and she put her head on my shoulder, and she says, you think we can really make this work? You know how us guys are. We're supermen. No, I can work 80 hours a week.
Oh, we'll make everything work.
Yeah, and take care of twins, and I'll build a house, right? So I wanted her to have a house because that was her dream. I don't know, a house, because in Germany, most people live in high-rise apartments because it's really like overcrowded, especially when you're down by Frankfurt. So I said, yeah, I can make it work, right? And she's like, all right. She goes, this is on you, buddy. And I said, yeah, no problem. So as we're walking out, we took 2 vehicles. So now I walk out to my Jeep, and she's walking down. She's, oh shoot. She goes, I don't know if I locked the door. So I went over to the vehicle, and she went back up to check the door. And then all of a sudden I hear this bloodthirsty scream. Jay, help me. I see her arms. Ooh, almost like somebody came up behind her and just shoved her in her back, and her arms went flying out. She's stumbling, and she's ready to fall. I'm running as fast as I can. As I'm running, I got one eye. I'm scanning the house, right? Almost like a bionic man, looking for anything
moving, anything that's there. Yeah.
Yeah, anything that's not right. So I'm trying to save her, but there's always like a guardian angel. So instead of falling on her belly, which would have killed the babies and probably her, somehow it was like a perfect martial art roll. Her hand came in front, and she rolled on her arm and shoulder, and that's what saved her.
What caused it? What was it that made her move like that?
Well, we don't know. She was so nerved up because she was worried about the babies. So I grabbed her, not thinking. I grabbed her, threw her in the car, and I rushed her to Bay State Medical up in Springfield, which is a large hospital. And they ultrasound everything, and they said baby's okay. And I asked her, I said, what happened? She goes, I said, did you fall? And she was confused. She goes, I don't know. She goes, 1 minute, it's like she had like a mind blank or something like that, because she said, I don't know if I was pushed or not. All I remember was falling, and I'm thinking, the babies. I said, your arms went out behind your back like this. And
yeah, said, like when you push somebody, like it jolts them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said that's not natural. I said, you as a human, you have defense system. Your hands will always go in front of you, right, to protect you. So I started thinking. So I was so angry, right? And me, being a crazy vet, right? I'm thinking, I want to take that Jeep and I want to run it right through the wall of the house, because I'm like, somebody, is in there. So, I thought about it. So we went back, and she said, okay, John. She goes, well, let's do this. She goes, I'm going to protest, and I'm not going to agree to do it. But Jay said he could do it, so let's do it. So now this is the beginning of our nightmare. So now we go down by Farmington, and we got our lawyer sitting there, and so we're doing the transaction, and then all of a sudden the guy said, you know what? He said, the real estate, I guess the mortgage holder, he said they want 1 year house insurance up front. And we're like, what? I said, what's that going to cost? And now John's sitting there like this, right? And he's a big guy, right? And Elka looked at me, and they said, roughly $1,200. Elka's like, that's it, deal's done. She goes, I just put everything I got into the house. I'm having babies. She goes, I can't come up with another $1,200. She goes, that's it, guys. She's ready to pick up her stuff. And John goes, wait, stop. You know what? He goes, I love you guys. He goes, and he said, and Jay takes care of my wife, and they're good friends. He goes, so you know what I'm going to do? He goes, I'm going to pay 1 year house insurance for you guys. He goes, that's my housewarming present. I'm like, I like slapped me in the head, because I'm like, nobody just says, you know what, $1,200, no problem. So Alka's like, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'll take care of it. He goes, matter of fact, he goes, my father, they're Italian. He goes, they own a huge construction company down in New Haven. He goes, I'll I'll get some of my workers, and I'll come up, and he goes, I'll make sure that everything's tidy up, make sure there's no nothing, and then you guys got a house. So we're like, okay. So as he gets up, and he gets his paper, and he turns around, and I'm looking at him because it's a bad habit because of what I used to do. I'm always watching people, and I sit in the corner, and that's why people say I got PTSD, because I'm always looking for a way out, because I'm always like hyper vigilant. So I hear him say to his attorney, he goes, "Thank God I got rid of that fucking house."
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what?
You heard him say that?
Yeah. So now I'm thinking, not ghost, but I'm thinking, well, maybe.
Yeah. What's wrong with that house? What's wrong with the house?
Yeah. I'm thinking, is there something wrong with the sewer line? Is there something that's really expensive? Because nobody just throws out $1,200 and says, "Hey, guys, here, take it."
Right.
There's always going to be a catch. So anyhow, we're going to jump start here. And so anyhow, we end up getting a house. So before we moved in, we had to make it livable. So I got my brother, and my brother was 6'2", and he was in the Marines for 8 years. And I always called him my gentle giant. And this guy could do damage. But again, he would be the type of guy that would pick up a baby, and he was so gentle. And, and you think Cliff would just be able to, grab somebody and take him out. But he always tried to negotiate. He never wanted to use force, except for when we were younger and we used to get in full contact fights, but we were family. So he came over, and he was painting. Some of the guys that worked for me, this guy Al, he said, "Man," he goes, "you know what?" He goes, "It's going to be an honor." He goes, "Just to work with you and learn from you." He goes, I'm not going to charge you anything. I said, "Al," I said, I got to pay you something for gas." He goes, No. He was a real hardcore Christian. He was a Catholic and everything. So we get there, and everything seemed to be okay the first day or two. I went back the next day early in the morning because I wanted to do, before work, I needed a polyurethane something. But when I got out of work, it would be dry enough for me to do it. So now here we go, Shane. I go in there by myself, and
in the house.
Yeah. So my mind starts scanning. Something's off. I feel something. What it is, I don't know. I get the heebie-jeebies, right? So I'm looking around, I'm scanning. Now I'm thinking, well, I remember what Michelle said. There could be squatters in the house. It's an old neighborhood.
Oh, man.
So I go out, and I prepare myself, and I clear each room, right? Nothing's there. So I'm like, okay, Jay, come on, you know what? It's an old house. It's
get out your old head.
Yeah, it's playing with you. There's creaks. There's gonna be banging sounds. Forget about it, right? So I get the work done. I go home. So as times go on, so when Al comes up by himself for the first time, right? Al's like, "I can't wait. We're gonna start doing some construction. I'm happy." And it's like, this is great. So my brother wasn't there that day. So he pulls up, and guess what happens? As he pulls up on the curb, boom, he shatters his tire. It doesn't go flat. It just explodes when he gets there. So now we end up working on his car, and I'm cooking supper, and I got the babies. I got a babysitter. I'm trying to juggle things, right? And I don't know how I did it. So Al's like, "Hey, it happens. I hit the curb, whatever." And Al's like, "I don't believe in ghosts." And as time went on, I said, "Al, something's weird." We would start out with tape measures. And by the end of the night, all the tape measures would be gone. Tools would be missing. And then we would find them in the basement on shelves everywhere. So I went out, and back then I was making really good money. So I went out, and I bought like a half dozen, right? And I said, we're going to have plenty of tape measures. By the end of the night, there was no tape measures. So, and the progression started getting really worse. Things were getting really weird. And Al's like, "Jay, there's always a logical explanation." And I love this guy. We were getting some like me and you, we could get some crazy conversations. And he always brings you back to reality. Look, there's no ghosts. He goes,
right.
He goes, and back then I was
So he still hasn't thought about that, like anything's weird with the tape measures being gone. Like nothing's ever crossed his mind yet that there could be something going on here.
Yep, he never thought. So now what happened? I'm going to speed up. I don't know how much time we got because this is
we got about we got about 15 minutes.
Okay, so anyhow, I'll speed up. So now what happens is I'll concentrate on Al. Now, Al's like a 5'4" Italian guy. He speaks Italian, right? And awesome guy, heart of gold. So while he's there, all of a sudden, I go to work one day, and I'm always yelling at him. I said, "Keep your radio with you. Keep your radio with me," because and he's like, "What, Al? This is a huge building." I said, "Something happened to you?" I said, "You go." I mean, some of the blower wheels are like 8 feet round. I said, "Something happens." I said, "You need to get your radio and say, hey, I'm in trouble or something happened." So I used to send him home. I said, "Go home, get your radio and come back." So all of a sudden one day, can't find Al. I'm calling him on the radio. So I'm searching for Al, and I go down in the basement, and the basement of the building, it's empty, but it's scary. And I see him over sitting down, and he's bawling his eyes out. Now, I'm touched. I'm like, I said, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" And so I picked him up. I said, "Come on." I said, "Let's go in the freight elevator. Let's go to my office. Let's get a cup of coffee." So we go up there, and I said, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" He goes, "Teresa left me and divorced me." I'm like, "What?" How? I said, "You guys were like super religious." He said, behind his back, she was going on a Christian dating site.
Oh man.
So I helped him get through that. I told him come over, and he had like 5-6 kids and everything. And so we got him through that. So he said, "Okay, Jay," he goes, "nothing's going to stop me now." He goes, got rid of my wife. He goes, "I'm going to concentrate on work. I got to focus on work." So all of a sudden, I got a phone call from his son. "Hey, Mr. Yaple, is my dad's job going to be secure?" I'm like, "Why? What's going on?" "My dad's got pneumonia. He's in the hospital." I'm like,
"Got a what?"
"He's got pneumonia."
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm like, now this is the beginning of like a plague on me. So I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine." I called corporate. I said, "I got a guy down." I said, "He's got pneumonia." I said, make sure he's got everything, his sick time, everything he needs. Make sure he's okay. He's a good guy. So we got him back on his feet. Al said, "Okay, I survived the divorce and pneumonia. Let's go to work, Jay." He goes, "I got to concentrate." A month goes by. No Al. I get a phone call. "Mr. Yaple, my dad's in the hospital. He had a massive heart attack." I'm like, "Oh my God." So I was concerned for his health. I'm like, "Is he okay? Anything he needs, you call me. You got it. You guys are like family." I said, "How are you guys holding up?" "Mr. Yaple, we're okay." He goes, he goes, pray for me." And because the oldest kid now has to take care of all his brothers.
Oh man.
Al gets to that. And make a long story, everything befell on Al. So finally, one day Al came over and he says, "I can't work anymore." He goes, I said, "Al, you don't have to work." I said, "Come over." I said, "Well, we'll get some espresso. We'll go down the street and then we'll get some cannolis and we'll have some fun." And he says, "You know what?" He says, "Jay," he goes, "I do believe now there's something wrong with your house." He goes, "I think you guys need to get out." So, and we were talking. He goes, "Well, you know what? When I was in the basement," he says, "I speak in Italian, and he says, I heard somebody talk Italian, old Italian." And I turned around and he goes, I could hear clearly that somebody was talking about something, but I thought, you know what? It's all in my head. He goes, he goes, "So, I'm just having, after all the stuff I went through," he goes, "my mind." He says, "But there's something wrong with your house." He goes, "Nobody speaks old Italian." So I asked him what he said. He's like, he would never tell me. So that was the end of Al. So that was the first guy. So now Now it goes on to another guy, another guy. And I'm like, I'm losing guys left and right. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And so finally, I know we're almost out of time because there's so much more. We haven't even started in this.
Well, that's what I mean. And listen, don't worry about yourself there, because we can always do another show another time, and we can always pick up right off. But this is such an interesting story. But let me ask you this though, man. So when you found out, when you actually started believing that there's actual stuff going on in the house, what experiences did you have that got you to that conclusion?
Okay, so the one that got me, Shane, is I kept rationalizing, rationalizing and justifying, and you always look at the W's, like when you're like kind of law enforcement is always, you always look at the W's and people are like, what's that? Who, why, where, and when. Right?
Yep.
So I'm always thinking, okay, you know what? Windows creak, things happen, we're gonna be okay. So all of a sudden, we got the kids settled in, got in bed. I was still awake. And at the time, the way my bed was facing, it was facing towards the doorway. And, I don't talk about it, but people say I got PTSD because I'm always wired for sound and I'm always jumping around. So all of a sudden I'm laying in bed, Elka's sleeping, and I'm just relaxing. And I hear, somebody's coming up the stairs. So I'm like, oh my God, somebody broke in the house. So I reach over.
That's what it sounded like. Were footsteps coming up the stairs?
Yeah, you could hear somebody coming up. So I reached over to the drawer and I put my hand on something in case if there's a burglar, I'm going to take care of it. So all of a sudden, what I see, Shane, I'm thinking, you know what? I got to go to mental hospital. I see this girl standing there with long, blonde, natty hair, like all frizzy. I'll never forget the face. She looked kind of pale, right? And I looked at her dress. It was like a plain, thin dress, but it was all jaggedy on the bottom, like it was all torn up. I looked at her legs. It was all gray. But then what caught me was she had these high heel shoes, right? Open toe high heel shoes. She was holding them like she came back from a party. And I'm like, oh man, Jay, this is crazy. As soon as I said that, it was like something jumped on my chest, pinned my hands down. I go to yell for Elka, right? I'm like, I couldn't think. So I'm like, oh my God. And I hear it in my head, like telepathically, there is no God. I'm like,
what?
God, yeah. I'm like, there is a God. And I felt like saying, you're about to meet him, So I'm like this. So I'm taking my elbows, I'm fighting, hitting Elka in the back, please wake up. And I'm like, Jesus, please help me. God, help me. All of a sudden, poof, it was gone. So I'm like, wow, man, it must be a wake dream or something, maybe all those years what I did is catching up with me. So I wake up the next morning. I'm like, I'm ready to go to work and I'm ready to, jump out of bed, and my wrists are sore. I'm like, oh my God, Shane, I looked at my wrists and I had black and blues of like little fingers from where that ghost held me so tight. She left black and blues. And that's when I said, you know what? This is not psychological. This is not a game. This is for real. And it started going downhill. It started getting worse and started messing with everybody. And then people around me started dying. I mean, I lost my whole entire family from weird deaths that didn't make any sense.
Oh,
so it was really messed up. And we called in some of the best of the best. And in the beginning, I wasn't looking for Mr. Miyagi, but in the beginning, we always had a big old-fashioned computer. You
wanted some answers, though. You wanted some answers. You wanted some significant answers.
Yep. So, so what happened was, I go down to the town hall, and I'm straightforward, and that's what scares a lot of people, because I come up, say, and being an authority, I don't mean it, but because I'm really like a big teddy bear, right? But I sometimes say, okay, this is it, and this is how it's going to be, and then I have to catch myself, and I'm like, I'm just So I went down to the town hall, I went to the records department, and I said, who's in charge? And this lady says, me. I said, I want a copy of everybody that lived here. So this girl looked at me, right? You know, and she smiled. So we go to this huge record room, and she goes, she's funny. She goes, "You're kind of rude, aren't you?" Step back. I'm like, "No." I said, "I'm not rude." She goes, "My name's Colleen." I said, "I'm Jay Yaple, right?" Who would believe that we become great friends? So she said, "Jay, it's going to be $1 a copy." I said, "I don't care about money right now." I said, "I just want to find everybody living here." So now, Shane, this gets weird. So she ended up making me this list of everybody that lived here. So she said, she goes, "Jay, it's going to be really expensive." She goes, "We haven't got out of the 20th century." She goes, "They didn't have flipless blouse." So what happens now is she goes, "How about this? I'm going to write down the page number, the volume number, and everything. So when you come back and you say, 'Hey, Colleen, I'm going to look up, like, say, Mr. Jones, and it's in his book on his page number.'" It's okay. So I gave her my pager number. I gave her my home number. You know, back then I had a flip cell phone, and I gave her my office number. So I'm working. Everything's happening. And all of a sudden, she calls me up, and she says, "Jay, can you talk?" I said, "Yeah." I shut my office door. And I said, "What's going on, Colleen?" She goes, "There was a guy." And she goes, "He went down the street, and he wiped out a whole family." I'm like, "What?" So now I'm thinking, okay, if this really happened, there's got to be proof. So I call one of the best paranormal investigators I knew at the time. The guy was a warrior. His name was Robert Baker, right? Bob was, I tell you, that guy, I wish he was here because he could do so much good. He could teach a lot of people. So I called Bob, and he had a pool business, right? He installed fences and pools all the way from Greenwich Village to New York. He says, "Go home." He goes, "I'm coming over." He drove like a bat out of hell all the way up, an hour and a half. He goes, "Let's go down to the library." He goes, we got to find proof. So we go down there and we're looking at the microfilm, and there it was, 1930. A guy by the name of Charles Caporeira goes down, and we start looking, investigating. So this kept happening. I'd be like, ring. I said, "Hello, hey, Jay, it's Colleen." And she goes, "You're not going to believe this." So I know we're out of time. So I'm going to give you some crazy trivia. Out of 254 years, how many people do you think died of natural causes in the house?
25.
No. How about you, Sean?
40.
No. One person.
One person?
One person. Talk about odds, right? But then again, we don't know if she died peacefully. Her name was Marion Arnott, right? She lived in a house. Her father bought the house in the 1850s. She lived there. And the newspaper articles, because back then we didn't have phones, so everything that happened, I remember as a kid, you would call up the newspaper article and they would put the thing in there, and it said, "Marion Arnott entered something like peacefully at rest, she died of bronchial pneumonia." Well, a while back, I had this really nice paranormal investigator come over, and I normally don't talk about cases. He comes over, he's got his brother and another couple. So they fill up an air mattress. And the couple takes the living room. He takes the big bedroom, and his brother takes the small room. So all of a sudden, our phones are ringing like about 3 a.m. He's knocking on the door. "You guys got to come over. You guys got to come over." He's laying in bed, and he hears somebody coughing and choking. And he's like, "Oh my God, I wonder if my brother, he's got sleep apnea. Something's wrong. Maybe my brother came in and took the other bed." He says, "Jay Elka, I roll over. I see this old woman laying there. Her eyes are wide open. She reaches out to me. She's gasping for air. I'm like, help me." And I'm like, "Oh my God." And then all of a sudden it was like solid, like this Coke can. And then she just dematerializes. He jumped up, he ran over, woke up his brother, ran down, woke us up, and he goes, "What the hell was that?" I said, "You know what? I think you just saw Marion Arnott's last moments on Earth."
Oh, wow. Well, hey, Jay, we got to stop right there.
All right.
We got to stop because it's right at time. But we have to have another session. We have to have another show. So I have to have you back on because we got to pick up right here because I feel like we can go on. It's going to get more and more and more interesting, but we have to stop right here. But I wanted to thank you. Tell everybody that has been watching how they can get a hold of you at Enfield and everything like that.
Oh, okay. Well, you can go. We have a lot of social media. Actually, my daughter Mackenzie runs everything, and I usually do the storytelling and the investigation. So we have a thing called Enfield Haunting, right, on Facebook. Our website, I have to read it because I can't remember everything anymore. It's called 1771enfieldhouse.com. You can go on there. You can call us at 860. Wait a minute. Yeah, 860-698-9535. And ask us because we have everything. And believe me, we tailor fit things. We actually had somebody come over that they wanted to have a birthday party and surprise one of their relatives. So we went out, and what we do is we don't just go buy a Costco cake. I go down to the Italian shop and I get over to the Italian bakery, and I get what they call the Italian wedding cake, which is it's layered with peaches and strawberries and whipped cream. So we got them down, and then we did we told some stories, and then we went on a paranormal investigation of the house, and they fell in love with it, and they want to come back. So we do everything. So yeah, just get a hold of us.
Even on Facebook too, like Enfield CT Haunting, right?
Yeah, we have that. We also have a Facebook page called the 1771 Enfield House. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're still trying to branch out to those places.
Yeah,
but we have. I mean, you can get a hold of us everywhere. This is our business card, which I don't think you can see it. And it was designed by my wife and my
awesome
daughter.
Awesome.
So this little guy here, I'm going to show you. He's like our mascot. His name is Henry, right? My wife does crafting, and one day a lady came up to her and she says, "You need this." She goes, and she hands it, and it feels like a real baby. So I'll tell you one quick funny story. I'm always joking. Like I said, I'm straightforward, and I surprise people. So we were at a craft fair one time, and I know the chief of police. So it's early morning. The guy's just waking up, and he's looking around the craft fair. We're up in Granville, Mass. So I got my cup of coffee, and I'm trying to get Mackenzie to get out of her shell. I said, go up to the chief, ask him to hold the doll and take a picture with him, and then we can post it on Where's Henry. So, of course, me, being a jerk I am, right? The poor guy's walking, right? Has his coffee, and I'm holding him like this, like a baby. And I said, "Hey, chief." He goes, "What?" I go, "Bruh." I throw the baby at him. He freaks out. He thought it was a real kid. "Oh, my God." He goes, "What the hell's wrong with you?" And he grabs it, and he goes, "Oh, my God, Jay." He goes, "I thought I was going to have a heart attack because I thought you just threw a little." He goes, so I said, "Did you mind taking a picture?" He goes, "No." He goes, "Give me a second for my heart to get back in." So, so Mackenzie took a picture. So this is Henry, and we call him, he goes, "My name is Henry." So Elka painted him and made him look scary. So if you guys come up, you guys can take a picture with Henry.
Definitely. Well, we got to have a round two. We got to have a round two to this conversation. Jay, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and it's been a blast talking to you. We can have this conversation forever, but I definitely want a round two with you. I think people on here want to hear the rest of what you got to say too. So let's definitely make that happen. Okay.
Yeah, definitely, brother. Yeah, because I mean, we're going to be like a part 6 because the history alone is bizarre. It's twisted.
No, I know. All right, Jay, you've been an awesome guest, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you guys for showing up in your comments and everything. Sean, thank you for reading out the comments. Well, the ones that we could see at least. I appreciate you guys all coming on. Comment if you have anything else to ask Jay or anything like that, but do look them up. Do look up Enfield because it's a phenomenal story in itself. But I thank you guys for showing up here, and you guys have a good rest of the week. You guys stay safe, be blessed always, and stay spooky, people.
All right. Take care, guys. Take care, Sean. Take care, Shane.
I'm going to say something here real quick, Shane. I know a lot of people made some comments about some stories that they would like to have Jay tell. So maybe you can go through and skim through the comments a little later.
Absolutely.
Said he's got a lot of great things. Also, real quick, our co-friend on our network here has a book that's out.
Yes, sir. That's
right
it.
Here. Check
That's
out
it.
Nathaniel L. Wells' book.
Yep.
And,
Nathaniel, yep, that's his new book. He's working on a second one too. So, I mean, he's so busy with it. He's going to be so good. We got some great authors that have published things in this group, and you guys show them some love and just see what they're about. I mean, they're phenomenal people, and they write phenomenal books.
All righty, everyone, have a great night.
All right, guys, we'll see you.
Take care, guys. Shane, we'll talk soon. Sean,
okay, buddy.
Be on your show. Everybody, we'll talk soon.
All right. Later, guys.
All right.
Later.